Okay, let's do this. Child's Play 2, my second favorite in this series, and I think that's true for most. Like many movies, it came just after its predecessor and had a lot to live up to. Considering the success of Child's Play, a horror classic, I think number 2 at least delivered a little bit more of what we wanted. That was Chucky. Chucky was great in this, maybe not topping his first performance, but nonetheless bringing back that maniac we knew from the first. Interesting to note that Brad Dourif, who did the voiceover work prior to this film so that they could match it up with the puppet. This film had moderate success. It cost $13 million to make and grossed $35.7 million that year. One thing I love about these films is that it's based off My Buddy. Always brings back a nostalgic feel for me. I'm not sure if the film captured everything that the first one did, but unlike a lot of second editions, I think it did credit to the franchise. The setting was just right for this type of movie. An old house in whatever type of style that is, I'm not really sure, but it looks nice. And some great dispensable characters. The fashion in this at parts just make me laugh. That was once in, and I'm a little ashamed. I think Child's Play 2 stepped up Chucky just a notch. They didn't up his powers or any bullshit like that. They just made him more desperate, and I think it worked. So without further delay, let's take a look at Child's Play 2. Great music to open with. We see Chucky's melted head and boom, the Child's Play logo. Check out when they are cleaning the doll. Why is the doll made of metal? Seems a bit excessive to me. But there they are rebuilding the doll that was so much trouble to them, trying to prove that there was nothing wrong with it in the first place. Max, the corporate suck-up, is showing the test to his boss, displaying this doll is fine. The eyes go in and the dude gets electrocuted, and then thrown through the glass, which I think was a little overplayed. Andy is back and explaining the story of his experience with Chucky. Basically a small recap of the first and yet another person who doesn't believe him. We meet the parents, Phil and Joanne Simpson, originally named George and Mildred, so good call on the name switching. And we meet Grace Poole, George's mom from Seinfeld. The dad is skeptical about how far along Andy has come since the murder. The dad's talking to Andy about sushi, like any kid really gives a shit about sushi, and then he almost crashes his car into a good guy truck. Oh well. Meet Kyle. She's wearing some sweet 90s clothes and a smoke. Whoa, pretty badass. And they packed a good guy doll on Andy. Poor kid. What were they thinking? The dude from Ally McBeal brings Chucky along for the ride, although I'm not really sure why. He forgets some vodka for his girlfriend and stops off at the store, leaving Chucky in the car. Chucky places a call to the foster home and finds out the details of Andy's new whereabouts. No security precautions there at all, eh? Chucky hijacks Johnson or whatever and makes him park near Andy's new place. Chucky then suffocates him to death. Chucky at the bottom of the stairs waiting for Andy is pretty epic looking. Chucky then beats the hell out of Tommy, the other doll, breaking the glass statue, then burying the doll. The father decides to ground both the kids until one of them admits to it. Phil is thinking about backing off of taking care of Andy, but the mother likes him on the other hand. Andy walks by them with the doll to show that he's over the whole Chucky thing. Andy falls asleep that night and Chucky awakens. Andy wakes up and he's tied to the bed, but it's interrupted by Kyle coming through the window. Chucky notices he's turning human again, although hasn't it been well over 3 days? Or does it start over again like a death in a video game? You just get to continue. Check out Kyle's awesome key as a necklace. Remember those? I don't, and I'm glad. Chucky follows him to school and finds his test paper, writing obscene language on it. I agree with every word, but Andy's in big trouble. Then she locks him in the room, which has got to be some kind of fire hazard. Miss Kettlebell is in the toy closet looking for Andy when Chucky stabs her with a pump. Pretty awesome scene. Chucky looks great, then he beats her to death with a ruler. Andy hears the folks talking about sending him back to the foster home, which I thought was kind of cruel being that their room is just down the hall. Andy goes Rambo and grabs an electric knife. He heads to the basement with no Chucky in sight. It's a suspenseful scene, not knowing if Chucky is even there. Chucky jumps Andy, and Phil thinks he hears something and goes to the basement to check. Meanwhile, Andy and Chucky struggle on. Phil comes down the stairs and Chucky trips him up with a pole, then releases him and breaks his neck. You kind of feel for the wife on this one. Joanne is blaming herself for the death, and Kyle goes to say goodbye to Andy. Andy warns Kyle of Chucky still being in the house. Kyle throws Chucky into the garbage bin. She is swinging on the swing and uncovers Tommy, buried by Chucky. Kyle discovers that Chucky is missing. Kyle grabs a knife and heads upstairs. She finds Joanne dead. Off-screen kills suck, and then sits on the bed only to struggle with Chucky. Chucky grabs a knife and the tension builds. He trips her up and gets her to drive after Andy. They get pulled over by a cop. Then Kyle speeds away and hits the brakes, sending Chucky through the front. She tries to ram him, and these long pauses pisses me off. Get driving! Now she's caught. Way to go. The fire alarm goes off and Andy knows what's up right away. Chucky takes down Grace and corners Andy. They hitch a ride on a mail truck, but Kyle spots them and takes off after them. There's a long car chase scene with Kyle cutting off a driver, but only to see Andy run off into the good guy's factory. A fitting scene for the end of the movie. Charles knocks out Andy and begins the ceremony. It concludes with some crazy effects and Chucky realizing he's trapped in the body. Kyle takes him out with some boxes and the race is on. It's like a maze in this building, very disorienting to watch. They crawl up these rolling pin things, and I'm not sure what the plan was, but Andy almost falls into Chucky. His arm gets crushed, and that's not a problem. He just tears that right off and then jams a knife into it. That's why he made my top 10 horror badasses list. The assembly line doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you're paying attention to it, but whatever, it's just a Child's Play movie. Chucky takes some guy out on the assembly line, which is pretty gross, and then Chucky attacks him but ends up being sewn to a chair, and then being brought up to this machine that kind of melts body parts onto other dolls. Yeah, I have no idea, but anyways, a big mess of shit comes out, and is it Chucky, or is it? Kyle gets smacked with a corpse, and then Chucky gets stuck on some kind of rad, and Andy melts him with hot plastic. Then he runs and saves Kyle from being melted. Wow, Andy sure is busy. Chucky's not done there as he rises once more, only to be filled with a gas balloon until his head explodes. The movie ends there, as should have the series. But that's another story. Kyle and Andy walk off, ending Child's Play 2. Overall, I like this movie. It kept true to the original concept as best it could, I think. I also wonder what kind of avenues this picture would have taken if Wes Craven had directed this, as once rumored he was. I mean, look what he did with the Nightmare series. Chucky was great in this film, and I'm not sure if they did anything different with how they animated him, but it looked every bit as good as the first one. The element of Chucky being exposed for what he is, the excitement of seeing that, was there a few times, but none I think matched Mrs. Barkley and Chucky in front of the fireplace in the first one. It's hard to be a sequel in the top the classics in the genre, but I think Child's Play 2 came very close. I think it's worth a watch, and if you haven't seen it, although I'd watch the original just so that you're up to speed on things. This is Pat for Horror Movie View Guy, giving it a rating of 7.5 out of 10. Sub for updated posts, and take care. Bye-bye.